Welcome back, 5th grade social studies scholars, to another Passport to Social Studies video. My name is Mr. Giordano and I will be your teacher for this video. We are going to continue with our Unit 3 study on the Dominican Republic, focusing on our Day 1 to 3 lesson. We are going to continue with our topic of the Dominican Republic, looking at how does where you live affect how you live? Our focus question is, how do geographical features and regional characteristics influence human settlement, land use, and economic opportunities? Our learning objective will be to explore the idea of how where you live affects how you live by analyzing specialized maps of the Dominican Republic. In our last video, as part of this series, we talked about a tree map and how we can collect information to then use to build our thematic map. Today, we are going to look at how this might look in a Google slide. One of the sources that you were able to look at in your researching phase when you were building your tree map is this website from Kids World Travel Guide. And it really gives us some interesting facts about the Dominican Republic, thinking about where it is, thinking about the geography of this place, and really looking at some of the landscapes and the important locations. This is a website that I use to help me consider what my categories might be for my sample thematic map. I decided to look at the important landmarks and parks for my map. As we can see here, different monuments and different cities that are all very important to the country of the Dominican Republic. I also began to think about the various crops that affected the economy of this country, such as sugarcane, tobacco, and coffee. Next, I took a look at the thematic maps provided in our resource guide. These were some of the maps that we went over in the beginning of the last video. I took a look at the economic activity map, and I was really able to get a sense of where the various crops were grown, such as sugarcane, coffee, cocoa, and tobacco. This really helped me as I planned and thought about my own thematic map. To build my own thematic map, I created my own Google slide by going into my Google Drive, pressing New, and then Google Slide. Once I did that, I copy and pasted my sample tree map into the slides. Again, just in case anyone is a little confused, this is the graphic organizer that you can use to build your tree map. And here's a blank slide of the Dominican Republic. As you now think about the categories that you may use for your thematic map and where you might place any icons on this blank map, Google Maps is a great tool to help you build that thematic map and find accurate locations. So I included this hyperlink here that you can click that will take you to a Google map of the Dominican Republic. This is a great tool to actually zoom in and be able to see where different locations are within this country, such as major cities, rivers, and other important locations. You can use the zooming in button, you can move around your map, and you could also search for other locations. For my tree map, I included waterways, crops, major cities, and landmarks and parks. I really began to think about this question of how does where you live affect how you live. I began to see some connections. By these waterways, crops are grown. We need water to grow crops. We need fertile soil. I also began to think about our major cities and how people need water. So they will, of course, be settling by waterways. Finally, I began to think about landmarks and parks. That landmarks and parks are also going to be located by cities where populated with many people as well as tourists who may be coming to these cities to view these landmarks and parks, as well as by waterways. I wanted to see what these connections would look like on a map. So I took this blank slide that I showed you earlier and began to actually place my various categories onto the slide, including the waterways in blue, and in red, the landmarks, and places. Then I created the key, and my key actually included little emojis or symbols that represented different things, such as parks and landmarks, coffee, cocoa, sugarcane, and tobacco. And what I began to do was actually look at the example of the thematic map provided in our lesson here, and I tried to find the same areas of sugarcane, coffee, cocoa, and tobacco and label it on my thematic map using my icons or my emojis. What I began to notice was that the areas where there were many crops grown, as well as major cities and waterways, were all connected. That in order for people to live and be able to function in a civilized way, they would need to live by water, and therefore many of these cities were established by waterways as well as parks. And as you can see by my map, they're often clustered together. My thematic map really made it clear to me that this question of how does where you live affect how you live, very clear that we need waterways in order to live, in order to function as a community and as one cohesive country. I hope this example of the thematic map really helped you think about how you might build your own thematic map. For the emojis, a little trick I like to use is that on your keyboard, if you press Control, Command, and the space bar, the emojis list pops up, and you're able to then use the emojis in your writing. You can also, of course, search for images from the internet that you can then put onto your map as icons, such as a tree or a factory or any other types of icons you might want to use. It's also important to make sure that you include a compass on your map. And you can again simply search for the image of a compass to ensure that the viewer knows the directions of the map. Finally, to add a box for your key, you could press the shape button and insert a shape and then type directly into it to type in your key and what you would want it to include. I hope this again helps you better understand how you can build your thematic map and really begin to think about our question for this lesson of how does where you live affect how you live. Okay, everyone, I'm going to send you off now to work with your groups to build your thematic map. I know you can do this, and best of luck. Have a wonderful afternoon, and I can't wait to see all your thematic maps. Thank you, everyone, and happy learning!